this is Dave G0OES, and this is the M1ECC Slidewinder antenna that I've bought with my own money, and I'm going to give you some views on this, and hopefully it helps you making a purchase when you go along to buy your next POTA, SOTA or whatever antenna. Okay, stay tuned. Right, the bag. Let's get the bag. So when you unpack the bag, you will have various things in it that you've put in yourself because you packed it in the first place, so you have to construct it yourself. So first things first, this is the M1ECC Slidewinder coil. This is the deluxe version, by the way, so the deluxe version has everything in it. And this is the whip, and we'll unfold the whip in a little while. So whip screws onto this, and you have this coil, which I'm sure you've seen in other videos. They used to slide up and down to change the inductance and to get some sort of match. And we will be putting a VNA on this and trying out various frequencies. Anyway, so that's what you get. That's the first thing. Well, it's actually wherever you put your hand in and grab, to be fair, because you will have put these in. Now, here's a key thing. These do my head in. This winder is 3D printed, and it has a Velcro strap for wrapping around these. Now, David has tried to prove me wrong, or showed somebody with gorilla strength. I do weights, by the way. With gorilla, well, I haven't got gorilla strength, to try and wrap around the Velcro on here. Very easy, simple thing. Doesn't cost that much money. Just put a longer Velcro strap on. Now, as you know, over time, these things tend to lose their stickiness. Spoke to a professional who I know very well, who's my son, in the light and sound engineering, and he just said, why don't you just use electrical tape and replace it every now and again? It is miles easier. That's what they do as professionals. I would recommend it, and I'll show you unwinding these things in a second. Does my head in. So first recommendation I would make to anybody who's manufacturing these is put one radial per winder. It is way easier. Even some of the stuff on AliExpress has that feature. The main issue with these is when you unravel them, as I'll show you in a second, you end up with a bird's nest, and that isn't great, especially when you're out, and it might be, as it was on one of my activations, it was 0 degrees Celsius, your fingers and thumbs, it isn't brilliant. Something else to show you as well is this. At the end of these radials is this bit of wire that sticks out. The best thing you can do with these is to get a wire cutter and chop them off. And I'll tell you why, because it will save you loads of issues, because those little bits here create most of the bird's nest mess you get when you're unraveling your radials. So as I say, best recommendation I can make, if you're going to do this yourself, is to put a radial per winder, and I'm currently having 4 winders 3D printed, so I can spend far less time getting ready in the field and far less time packing up. Next out of the bag, of course, is another radial with a bit of plastic tape around this one to keep it together, because of course, as I've told you, the Velcro doesn't work in the way I'd want it to work. More of these sticky out bits to chop off, which we will do here. Well, I remember I've been saving this until I do this video. I'll do it on all the radials. That'll save a lot of time. What else is in the bag? Well, we now get to the bones of the thing. What you get is a tripod, small tripod. I'll show you this in a second. You have an attachment you put at the top, and on here I've put the clamp, and you've got these wing nuts. I'll show you those. Whoop. You get these wing nuts. Now, I know lots of people use wing nuts. The ex-commander uses wing nuts. There's got to be a better method. It's, you know, for example, when I was reviewing bike stuff, on a push bike, you know, we used to have quick release skewers. Now we have straight through axles, way better, a bit of a shock for people at first. Everything works better, everything's quicker, everything's more efficient. Come on, amateur radio world, we can do better than flipping wing nuts. A cold day on somewhere like this, the wing nut comes off, goes in the grass, you've got a Scrabble in your hands. You know, what you have to do, you have to go on Amazon and buy a flipping load of the right size, but not amazing. There's the connection, but you get that. Put your tripod down, which we will do in a sec, and you can attach your radials. Remember, I have here a potential of 8 radials, and that's another feature on here that could be better. Those shafts need to be longer because a real squeeze trying to get the radials on. So that's something else that could have been identified in product testing. It could be better, but it still works. Don't let that put you off in the slightest way. For 300 quid's worth of spend, by the way, I would have expected this to be made of better quality. It works, but you know, I spent 13 quid on a pro bike stand that was amazing value from Lidl. Amazing, big thing, fantastic construction, 13 quid. We know you can go on AliExpress and you can buy the bits for these for less than a tenner delivered. So, and I know it's stainless steel, but just check that if you're going to buy stuff on AliExpress. But what I would say is, if you're going to be spending everything together 300 quid, you really need everything optimum. Longer shafts on here, you need better quality this, but you know, it works, it's good enough, but I'm just being picky about cost. What you also get is a ground spike version, because in this bag here we have a shaft, and then this is an extension shaft where I'll show you in a second. What you can do is you can get your M1ECC Slidewinder. You can add this extension rod onto here, and that extension rod will effectively make it not center loaded, but certainly not base loaded. And something else to play about, I've discovered from watching the Coastal Waves channel, which I really love, I've discovered that if I take this off, it seems to tune and work better. But that's just my experience. It's not scientific, but it's just, you know, my perception of things that happen. And you also have this, which when added to this rod here, gives you a ground spike with two, once again, could be longer wing nuts, could be a better way of connecting, but less likely to drop them on the floor with this flat plate. But anyway, that goes on there, stick it in the ground. It didn't work for me at first because the ground was just too wet. Now it's absolutely fine. And what I do find as well, when I put a one-to-one choke under here, there's something else I've found. So it's 300 quid, and you have to buy or make a one-to-one choke, because probably only using a short piece of coax, because you're out here in the field, not probably needing a very, very long one, and it's just a sensible thing to put in place. Anyway, if you put your one-to-one choke under here, very easy to do. If you put a one-to-one choke under this, you have to use a patch lead, because it won't fit here because of these bolts get in the way. However, if you make your own, you'll probably get around there. And you've got some really some spikes as well for putting at the end of your radials. So you've got all that, and that all comes in the bag, and I'll show you in the end how to pack it away. What I'm going to do now is to put the antenna up. All right, so there's the tripod in place. So it's okay, right? It's just okay. It's good enough. There it is in place anyway. And interesting thing I've never spotted there before, but yeah, a washer on the outside of a nut. Anyway, there it is. What I'm going to do now is to put the antenna on, attach the coax. This is the starting point for taking all the ground radials off here, and I will show you what happens in a second. What I'm going to do is to attach 4 onto here, get my focus right, and then I'm going to put another 4 onto here, so you get 4 on each winder. Right, so we've got the winders on here, and now what we've got to do, as you can see, is to sort out what could potentially be a bird nest that hopefully has been improved by chopping off the end of those ground plane radials. Anyway, we're going to spread them out evenly and put the other 4 on here. Here we are now with all the radials attached. As I say, miles easier to spread out when you chop that annoying bit off. See, it's tight on. Can you see how little space you have there for getting the radials on? And I've also dropped the stand at a miles better angle for better stability. Okay, using the MFJ, which I really like using, what we're going to do is to tune the antenna to 7 megs. You can see this SWR is way out at the moment, and what we're going to do is adjust the coil like so to get a better SWR match. Now I won't bore you, other people have done videos on this. I like doing it with a VNA like the MFJ or the Rig Expert or the Nano VNA. MFJ is just so easy to use, honestly. Then do that and get it tuned in, and then you're good to go on particularly these lower bands. With lots of running about backwards and forwards, we've tuned it and got it an SWR 1.5 now. Flicker between 1.6 and 1.5, which is not bad. And this is the thing, right? It's going to keep you lots of active. You're going to burn lots of calories going backwards and forwards, which I see as a benefit. But, you know, with a bit of messing around, you can get it tuned. And there we go. It is currently tuned on 40 meters. Let's try another band. Now we're at 21 megs and we've got 1.8. And I'll just show you something. We've got the coil right at the top, or the clamp right at the top of the coil. Now, how you improve this, I will show you now. So we've got a lower SWR now down to 1.4. So what have I done differently? What I've done differently is to fold over that top rod. So that goes into sections, and I've folded it over. And just by folding it over, it works miles better on 50 meters. And if you can see that there, you've got two buzzards circling as well. Slight distraction. 28 megs, and before somebody says, oh yeah, but depends on the situation, the best SWR I can get with two elements folded over is 3.3. So let's see what happens if we fold over more. Right, got the SWR on 10 meters down now to 2.4. And that is the best I could get it with lots of jogging backwards and forwards. That is where the coil is, or the clamp on the coil. That's where it is. And are you ready for the length of the antenna? Just there, folded over. And this strap here is dead handy. Dead handy. What I would say is these are annoying. I did speak to David, M1ECC, and he said, oh, they don't need to be there, get rid of them. My point is, if you're making something, you're quality assuring, you're product testing it. If it needs to be there, it's there. If it doesn't need to be there, it shouldn't be there. That's just my point. Look, we're buying retail, right? But anyway, I get picky on these things. Apologies, but that strap is dead useful. Use it, and you can fold your elements over and get tuned onto 10 meters. 6 meters, it just doesn't work for me, but that's for me, right? It just doesn't work. I just can't get tuned. But what I've gone and done even is this. Crazily radical. Knew it wouldn't work, but in desperation, folded over everything but one element. But yeah, even if it go right top of the coil with the clamp, still can't get tuned, but hey ho. This is the best SWR I can get on 50 megs, and I'll show you why. If we start at the base, I've got two rods extended and it folded over like that, so that will give you a bit of an idea. So you can have a play if you want to operate on 50 megs, and it will just about tune in a sort of tolerable way. What I'm going to do now is pretty radical. This is a telescopic antenna bought off AliExpress that's quite often featured on YouTube videos as a complete package. When you take it out, this is what you have. A really small telescopic antenna, really easy to pack away. However, there's a bit of an issue because that is not a 3/8 or an M10 connection. It is something else that is non-standard. Luckily, we have a solution. Manufactured yesterday, this is what I call the Al Murray, not the comedian, even funnier solution. Local Fred Nibner genius, Al Murray, who's fantastic, has made this for me because it adapts. That end is M10 3/8 and that isn't. And what it means now is I can put this on top of the M1ECC coil. Now you can see the M1ECC point here, because when I go up here, we've now got a flipping huge whip at full extension. This is just for experimental purpose, wouldn't recommend it. Remember, it takes your warranty off this. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm doing this for your benefit and clearly not for mine. Let's see how this tunes. Right, I've done absolutely nothing. Right, I've not moved the coil from before. It's on 7 megs, 40 meters, and it is on an SWR of 1.8. That's without doing anything. And now we're on 1.3. So if I show you this, you will see what I've done. Clamp position on the coil. There we go. And there is the whip at full length. You can see why the guy at Coastal Waves absolutely loves this. He actually loves this as well. He's got a few of them, but he loves this. Interesting, right? Let's check the other bands. 14 megs, I've taken the whip down by one section, literally just by sliding it down from the base by one section. It's at roughly an SWR of 2. Alright, so we're down to 1.1. What did I do? Let me show you. Bear in mind, we're not recommending these together because we lose the warranty on this, and this is designed for a different base loaded coil, but there are markings on here, as I'm sure you've seen in the adverts, at 14 megs. So all I've done is slid it down to 14 megs, and right at the top, with the clamp at the top of the coil, we're going 1 to 1. I've slid it down again, and it says 7 megs here, which is slightly perplexing. As you see, we've already tuned it at full extension at 7 megs, but let's see what the VNA says. Well, you won't believe this. I've walked back to the analyzer, and it's on 1.0 to 1 for 20 meters, which is amazing, right? But that was on the 7 megs bit. What happens when I tune it to 7 megs at the 7 megs section on that whip? We're on 1.5 to 1. Not quite sure about the ohms on that. That's anyway, that's what it's reading. Could we get better? We probably could, but you do minuscule moves on the clamp on the coil to get differences stepping backwards and forwards, and it all depends on the art of patience. But let's try another band. I folded down the whip to where it says 18 megahertz. Hopefully you can see that. So that's where I'm going to tune to. So the whip is, slightly out of focus, sorry, is shorter. Shorter obviously is a very scientific word, but you get the idea. On 18 megs, on the 18 megs length of the shaft, we're at 1.4 to 1. And I'll show you where the clamp on the coil is. The clamp on the coil is here, right at the top. Got an SWR without doing anything else at 1.4 to 1 on 21 megs, 15 meters, and I've done that with only doing this. I've slid the shaft down, but I can't see that, to where it says 21 megs, and that's all I've done. Literally just that, and as you can see, the clamp's at the top of the coil. Once again, I've done nothing other than sliding the antenna down. You can see it's not an amazing SWR, and we can tweak it, but that's all I've done on the whip. I've made the whip shorter down to the mark that says 28 megs. That's where the coil is still, or the clamp on the coil. Keep going the wrong way around, very annoying, I know. That's where it is. With much messing around, I've got 28 megs, 10 meters down to 1.8, 1.9, a little bit of a flicker. I have the clamp on the coil here, but this is the crazy bit, right? The antenna is completely folded down. I've got to try it at some point, but yeah, so what you could do, you could either use this fully retracted, or you could go to somewhere like Radio World, or the shops are available, and just dispose of both these and just put something else in, a dedicated, portable 10 meter antenna, like something like the Fire Stick or something designed for CB, and tune it in, you know, an alternative. I don't know, what do you think? Let me know. For those of you who are short on patience, which sometimes I'm accused of, let me just take you through the good, the bad and the indifferent for this M1ECC Slidewinder. So, tripod, good enough, but just bear in mind we're paying £300. So that's that bit. It's good enough, works. I like using it on the tripod. Ground spike's good as well, and if you pay deluxe, you get that. You get this clamp. These wing nuts, we need a better method. I even thought about Anderson power poles. But anyway, this stainless steel, which is excellent. Those rods need to be longer. If we're paying 300 quid for something, including postage, we need longer rods so we can get all these on. Because you go to the higher bands, as you know, you can't beat a decent ground plane. So you get 8 of these, 2 packs of 4 in deluxe on the winders, and if you snip off the ends on the radials, it all unravels easily. If you leave them on there, you end up with a bird's nest. And you have this marvellous coil, which has got this great clamp arrangement, which occasionally needs a little bit of a tighten up. And it is marvellous, and it's really well rated, it's excellent, and above it you've got not that, because that gets rid of your warranty, and you need one of these, what I call the Al Murray Special. Now, what you need to know about is this whip. I like it, it's very good. This is the sort of like military whip, as it's called, and as I say, Are these needed? If they aren't. If they're needed, leave them on. If they aren't, take them off. And that is a manufacturer. That's a note to the manufacturers. Look, deluxe. You know, if I sit in a Bentley, it's deluxe, arguably. Or sit in something far more controversial like a Tesla. It's still deluxe. But look, many cars are deluxe nowadays. But we might be called amateurs. But, you know, if we're buying things off professionals, people making a margin, we want professional standards. And remember, if you're distributing through shops, they demand that. Yeah, they put it on their margin, but they have to take a lot of the hit as well as the manufacturers do. If you are manufacturing and selling, operate to the same standards. But obviously, you might get more value because you're buying direct from them. But this is great, right? It works. You fold down the elements. It's good to use. It's worked particularly well for me on FT8 doing POTA. And, you know, it packs down really small. And I really like this Velcro strap on it. Key thing when you're folding this down, remember when you fold it out, you start at the base, you go to the tip. You start at the tip and you go to the base when you're folding it down. So I'll say that again. When you're folding it out, base to the tip, folding it down, tip to the base. Something else could void your warranty. Controversy corner. So we have the coil and we have the whip that I've been playing about now with for 5 weeks. And we have this, it was about 30 quid all in off AliExpress. Seemed expensive at the time, to be fair, because I wasn't sure what I was getting. It was a bit of a gamble like things are. However, what I would tell you from experience, just using it just for a couple of days, I'd rather this on here, warranty issues aside, than the very, very good Slidewinder whip. Just because I find it miles easier to tune. Don't know why, it just works with my brain. However, that shouldn't put you off. This and this together are very good quality, good, and once you get hang of it, you remember roughly on all the bands where it tunes in. Top tip, when you buy your M1ECC Slidewinder Deluxe Edition and you get one of these, and you've got one of these bags, I would prefer a zippy one. Yeah, I get the argument that the zips can break, depends on the quality. We've all had stuff with zips that we've used for years and abused, and they've been fine, and others that are broke. So understandable, but this is a bit tight. Deluxe again. This is quality, but deluxe size. Anyway, put it in the tripod head first. That is your first key tip on this. Then, after you put your tripod in head first, put this in head first too. Then get the whip with the coil, with the packaging stuff, anti-stress tape. Oops, put that in, anti-stress bubble wrap even. Put that into the bag. Then you've got your rods and your little plate for doing the ground spike. Shove those in. Well, place them in carefully, not shove. Shouldn't do that. So we've got a gap at the top. So what goes in the gap? Now I found the best way of doing the ground radials is to go on first of all with the circular clips and then just literally wind it on. Now you'll see, moving my leg so I'm getting them wrapped around my ankle. Now you'll see from the videos, you'll see people wrapping these from the firm and being able to get that strap round. I wouldn't bother, life is too short. And you see it's all been easy to do because we chopped off those annoying things at the end. And then what we're going to do is put these in the bag last of all. The last of the ground radials are wrapped on their spool. And as you can see, you know, you've got to be Eddie Hall to do that. Electrical tape. Right then, overall review of the M1ECC antenna. So if you got this far, thank you very much for your patience. Say anything like me, I haven't got a lot of patience and watch these things keep clicking through, and you've probably done the same, and I don't blame you. So I keep waving this about because this is great. There's nothing to do with the M1ECC antenna. It's off AliExpress and it was 30 quid, and added to the M1ECC Deluxe antenna, I found it very useful. But anyway, the M1ECC antenna, I think it could just do with a few tweaks. As I say, we could be lazy, couldn't we? And just buy the stuff we need, the radio and the antenna and the coax and the chokes and the balance, and we just plug it all in and it all sort of seamlessly works. It never really works out that way, but you know what I mean. However, we could do and be proper radio amps, and we can make everything. Our radio, linear amps, perhaps not coax, but also your antenna. And some of us have done it. For example, I used to love making magnetic loops, sometimes disastrously, sometimes very well, and not like the ones they sell now. They had actual proper vacuum variables. Anyway, all that sort of stuff, he says, going off on a potential rant. And it takes a lot of time, but it doesn't cost you anywhere near as much. So it's a balance, isn't it, between your time, your expertise, and what you want to spend. So I would say for doing POTA, SOTA, whatever, a vertical is great. It works. This M1ECC Slidewinder has got some great reviews from people, not just here in the UK, around the world. It's not a butternut, right? It isn't a butternut, and it isn't 800 quid, and it isn't hard to put together, and if you don't put the right grease in it, it's a bloody nightmare to take down. It's not really suitable for taking DX in. Some people would argue that DX Commander, their very portable version, is a competitor at the same price, but it's the initial build, where this takes very little initial build. So I would say improvements are definitely no wing nuts, a different type of clamping. If you keep the wing nuts, just be careful, put something on the floor to catch them, because if you've got cold hands and you just fumble, you will drop them, you will lose them. It needs a longer shaft for those wing nuts, so you've got space for the ground radials. Ground radials need that end chopping off and a better form of sealant them. I've done personally after chopping them off. And everything else for me seems to be okay. Yeah, the stand could be, the tripod could be better quality. Is it worth 300 quid? There's a lot of R&D gone into it, right? And also you're saving yourself a lot of time. But say, in the context of what it's for, you might want to support a British firm and give them some business, but also just remember the shortcomings. You might want to do some things yourself to make it a little bit better. All right, 73s, catch you down the line.